I remember the late Robert Preuss telling me that, who was at the center of that battle for the Bible in the Missouri Synod, that he was concerned years now after that battle that they had been able to save the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod from sort of drift toward liberalism, only to hand it over to the church growth movement.
Yes, that is the concern. So,
is that where the leadership is in terms of its president, Gerald Kishnick?
Yes, President Kishnick who comes out of Texas. He has been, his mantra is sort of, he frequently repeats the phrase, "This is not your grandfather's church." And, he had an article that he sent out to everyone in the church just this month repeating, "This is not your grandfather's church," and encouraging everybody to sort of get with the program and embrace these modern fads. And so he actually won in a somewhat surprising way. We had our previous president was a confessional man who died quite unexpectedly, and so nobody was expecting anything other than for that man to win. So Kishnick won kind of unexpectedly, and since then he has engaged in full-bore church growth movement type theology. So that's what we're dealing with right now. And he's also, he's very powerful, and he likes to exert his power in the church body.
Has Issues, Etc., or Todd Wilken ever been publicly critical of his leadership or of the officials?
No, never. I mean, this Issues, Etc. was broadcast under the auspices of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod Board for Communication Services. Not only did they not, name anybody, they would never publicly go against Kishnick or anything like that. And they actually stayed away from any internal church politics. We recently had something where one of the pastors in the church body had done an interfaith worship service with Muslims and Hindus, and he got in a little bit of trouble about that, and President Kishnick had supported him. Well, Issues, Etc. didn't even touch it. They didn't even talk about it. So they stayed far away from any synodical politics. Having said that, they did frequently criticize fad-driven, pop American Christianity. They did go after the church growth movement. They did go after, the latest incarnation of the church growth movement, the emergent church. They did go after purpose-driven theology. And these things, are near and dear to the leaders of the church body. And so I think that's exactly what happened. They got caught in the crosshairs of these battles on worship wars and what the meaning of church is.
So what's happening now? How are people responding to cancellation?
Yes, it's been amazing to watch. Having, again, served for a synodical entity before and being involved in what could have been considered unpopular decisions, we might take an action and hear from 2 or 3 people who were upset with what we did. Well, when Issues, Etc. was canceled, I've just never seen anything like it. People immediately took to the internet, sharing information, starting a Facebook group. There's a site called the Wittenberg Trail, which is for Lutherans and other Reformed people who are interested in Lutheranism. It's kind of like a Facebook for Lutherans, and that has been on fire with discussion about what's going on. Someone started a petition, and within 48 hours, I don't even know how many, they immediately took off. Thousands of people were signing. It's over 5,000 people now, and this is a church body that is not exactly known for activism, so it's just been amazing to watch. People who I interviewed who are in synodical headquarters report that they've received hundreds of letters from people complaining about the decision, and it's just been a firestorm. So I think what might have happened, too, is that the leadership who canceled the program, they might have taken things a little bit too far. They were able to do actions like this over the last couple of years, but they were more under the radar. They involved pastors rather than laity, and so people weren't quite they didn't like the direction maybe, but they weren't quite getting up in arms. Well, now people are massively up in arms, and they are wanting answers. They want to know exactly what happened. They want to know why it happened. When the Synod came out yesterday purporting to have numbers that would support their decision, they were immediately picked apart by people, and so it's just been a tremendous response.
So the leadership is now coming to realize just how significant the work of Issues, Etc. has been.
Well, I sure hope so. They should be able to realize that. I think that there might be a little bit of tone deafness going on. And even yesterday when they tried to defend themselves for this unpopular action, they kind of made fools of themselves because they were pointing, like I mentioned, to figures of people who are listening live to the streaming broadcast, which is something that just is not nearly as popular as on-demand listening, as you know. Downloading MP3s, subscribing through podcast feeds. That's the direction of the future. And with the removal of issues, et cetera, I think I've asked the Synod to clarify this, but they haven't gotten back to me. I think that was the only real podcast outreach that the Synod was doing. And so to take away this cutting-edge, frontier of technology without a replacement is just it's just kind of tone deaf. So I hope they realize it, but they're still being extremely defensive. They're not being forthright. And so it'll be interesting to see whether they get with the program and respond to the laity or whether they dig in even further. And depending on how they respond, we'll see what direction things go.
Well, there's always been a close relationship between Issues, Etc. and the White Horse Inn. What can our listeners do if they want to voice their opinion?
There are a few things you can do. For one thing, people are collecting money for Todd and Jeff so that they will be able to make it through these difficult months. And there's also a petition. The URL is www.petitiononline.com. And for information on where you can give money, I would visit Pastor Whedon's blog, and that is whedon.blogspot.com. And it would be really great. I mean, the reason why I think people are trying to collect money for Jeff and Todd is that if they don't get some financial assistance soon, they might be forced to sign the Synod's agreement that would give them severance pay only on the condition that they never explain what happened, that they never talk about what they've gone through, that they never reveal the truth of what's happened. And that's pretty big price to pay for a radio host, as you know. And also Jeff, the producer, his wife is going through some medical issues right now, so they could really use some help. And you can visit Pastor Whedon's blog for information on that.
Molly, on a totally unrelated matter, you have also written an article for us in the latest issue of Modern Reformation. We appreciate so much your insightful journalism and theological background and interests. What's this article about?
The article that I wrote for the latest issue is a brief history of atheism, and it was such a tremendous opportunity to write that article. It's kind of shameful actually, but if I've ever been tempted in any direction theologically, it's toward atheism. And so I wanted to explore what the history of atheism was, to see where it started and whatnot. And it actually was a wonderful experience to go through it. I spent a few days at the Library of Congress researching it and learning that atheism is a somewhat shallow ideology. It's so reactionary to Christianity. It just sort of feeds off of, there a lot of the atheism that's out there is just a response to Christianity as opposed to a religious worldview in general. But I guess I always thought that there was more to the atheistic arguments, and I found them just lacking and non-compelling, and just a bit weak. So I hope that other people, if they read it, are similarly have a similar response to it.
Well, it's a terrific article. I can vouch for that, and very insightful. You've been listening to Molly Hemingway, freelance writer in Washington, D.C., who writes also for the Wall Street Journal and has done so on the issue of Issues, Etc., having been canceled by the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. Molly, thanks so much for being with us on the White Horse Inn.
Thank you.